Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or are watching this channel for the very first time, the reason why it's called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions, but not everyone uses logic. For that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who have already subscribed to the channel. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me in social media. And I want to give a huge shout out to all those who allowed me to enter in your devices, whether it be live or whether it be on the playback. So what I'm going to ask is the following. If you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and hit the bell notification to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to either catch it live or catch it on the playback. And again, tonight, the subscriber mode is on. What does that mean? That means if you're not a subscriber and you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you will need to subscribe to the channel. So what I'm going to ask that for all those who are going to enter, please hit the like button as you enter. Now, before we get into the topic tonight, there's a lot of things that I need to discuss and cover, okay? Hopefully, other people will join the stream later on. First of all, of course, everyone's been talking about the fact that a young rap artist named Takeoff was shot and killed, which is a tragedy because, first of all, he was only 28 years old when he died. And there's still a lot of information that needs to be discovered regarding what happened. But what little we know, that apparently he was involved in a game of dice, and then someone was trying to shoot someone else. And unfortunately, he was struck by a bullet or bullets, at which the wound was fatal. Okay. We don't know if he was married or if he had children. But at this point, it's very early, and and hopefully we'll get some additional information regarding who were the alleged perpetrator or perpetrators regarding this crime. But let's say some prayers for the family of Takeoff, for his family, his siblings, his friends, his colleagues, and what have you. Because to lose a young one, okay, it's rough. But when you lose a young, at 28, they're just beginning life, okay, and it's getting to the point where to be a rap artist is almost like you're taking your life into your own hands. Because unfortunately, there are evil people there that are jealous of the success and will try to grab whatever wealth or possessions that a rap artist might have. Okay. Now, as you may or may not know, every week I choose to honor a different YouTube person because they have made a positive influence in these YouTube streets. So tonight I wish to honor one that some of you have known, or hopefully others will get to know him very well. He is no one, no less than my cyber son, the 18th Leather. Okay, he has done a couple of live streams. He is a new person in these YouTube streets, and he does provide a lot of interesting content. In fact, his last stream lasted for 6 hours. So shout out to him. To be that actually have his be that engaging for that length of time. So again, a shout out to the 18th Letter. So every week I'm going to highlight a YouTube creator who in my humble opinion, is making an honest impression on these YouTube streets. Now, with that on the way, pretty soon we're going to be approaching the end of season 4 of Uncommon Sense. There will be a season 5, okay? And actually, I have developed a theme for season 5. I will share it later towards the end of the year. Also, there's going to be a couple of changes. Sunday, November the 13th, will be the next time that I do a stream completely in Spanish. It will be my final time doing it, okay? And the reason why for that is that, unfortunately, when I do streams in Spanish, the attendance suffers. And while I did enjoy doing these streams in Spanish, one of the goals as a YouTube creator is to expand my audience. So I would encourage those if they want to enjoy my last stream in Spanish. It'll be on Sunday, November the 13th. Let me just say a few words in Spanish. El 13 de este mes será la próxima vez que yo pueda tener programación completamente en español. Lamentablemente será la última vez que voy a tener programación en español. Por la razón que cada vez que haga programación en español hay menos de audiencia. La verdad que fue un placer para mí hacer la programación en español, pero como un creador es que yo estoy tratando de expandir mi audiencia. Voy a hablar más sobre eso en la próxima semana. So I will be discussing it next week. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link. If anyone wishes to join the panel, they may do so. Before I do that, I will say again the three rules. Okay. Rule number one, do not overtalk anybody on the panel. Rule number two, do not disrespect anyone, whether it be on the panel or in the chat. And rule number three, do not use the intimate parts of genitalia as your avatar. If you do that, you will be immediately blocked and removed, whether it be by myself or by my moderators. Okay. And unfortunately, the reason why that's done, because what happened? And one person found out the hard way. Now, the topic for tonight is the most common reasons why people don't vote. Okay. Now, when you think about voting, okay, it's something that happens once or twice a year, depending on the election. Okay. Now, going into the history regarding voting, okay, at one time, only white people that own property were able to vote. And that was in the beginning of history in the United States. So as a result, the turnout was always low. Okay. Then later on, you didn't need to own property in order to vote. Then after the Civil War, the members of the African American community was given the right to vote, while sort of because of Jim Crow laws, trying to make it harder for them to vote. And then in 1920, women were given the ability to vote. And then in the 1970s, those who were 18 or over were allowed to vote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some recent articles regarding this topic. Now, what are some of the common reasons why people don't vote? One of them is the perception that their vote does not matter. Now, I don't know if you recall, but I did a stream 2 months ago regarding a topic. And one of the things I discussed, I gave examples where your vote has immediate impact, some impact, and limited impact, and absolutely no impact at all. Also, some of the reasons why people don't vote is simply because they don't know jack about the candidates. Now, there is there are places when you can go. I'm going to see if I can find out during the stream where you can find out about the candidates, and you can download a sample ballot so you can find out regarding who's running and if there are any propositions that involve. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read an article that was published in NPR, dated December the 15th, 2020. And it was written by Domenico Montanaro. Okay. So here is the article. More Americans voted in 2020 in any presidential election in 120 years. About 67% of the eligible voters cast ballots this year, but still remains a third that did not. And I see here we have a guest. I think I know who it is, but I'm going to wait and see. And of course, I'm going to state the obvious, which is the views of those who appear on the panel not necessarily those of the host or the channel. Any attempt to copy the material without the consent of the host or the channel is prohibited. By appearing on the call, you waive your rights to your image. Some of the views that people by phone may be considered offensive. If you do not like the content, you can block the channel. And let's see who we have here.
Boy, how you doing?
Good evening, Don Armando.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I just had to do this because I was just bored. But other than that, I would just like to put this is about why certain people don't vote, right?
Correct.
All right. Well, I used to be one of those people. Well, technically still am because I only vote for the president race. I don't really care for mayor or nothing like that because at the end of the day, Um, none of these dudes really do anything. It's just a whole bunch of power grab and crappy ads to me.
Okay. Well, you are entitled to your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, out here in Pennsylvania, they're talking about the governor and they're talking about um the senators. To me, it doesn't really make a difference because it's like certain cities are Democrat controlled and or sanctuary cities, if I might have. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing is really going to happen because the Republicans and the Democrats are not even doing anything bipartisan anymore. So it's like, who cares?
Well, I'm going to be among the many that's going to admit that both parties suck.
Yeah,
Okay?
I'm the same way because it's so bad out here in Pennsylvania. When I went up and I was trying to vote for, you know, if they had like anybody in the independent ballot, they didn't. And that's how and Philadelphia sucks for that because I wasn't to be honest, I was not gonna vote for Biden either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they they went up and they pushed off the independent track. So I'm like, really?
Okay. Well, let's first of all let's keep it 100. When it comes to the presidential elections, I mean, really, we have virtually no input. First of all, because the president is not determined by the popular vote, he's determined by the electoral college. And
Yeah.
that's bring looking in the 18th letter. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening. Shout out to my YouTube dad, Jose Negron. Shout out to Don. What's going on with you, Don? How you doing, bro?
Well, I'm all right. Look like I'm just getting a sore throat, so I think I'm gonna put some vapor rub after I eat or something. So it's just that I was explaining my position on why both parties sucks. And to me, it's funny because you have Republicans and Democrats, and I don't really feel either party because I believe that both parties go against my morals. And then on top of it, both parties they just there to steal your money. That's that's my own view on it.
Well, as I was about to say, when it comes to the presidential elections, when you think about it, the president is more of a figurehead position because the president can talk all he wants, but if he wants anything done, he or she has to rely on the House to come up with any legislation, which then it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate plays its games with it. And by the time it goes to the presidential desk for his signature, it's either a weak, watered down version of what the president wanted or a complete opposite.
Yeah, but doesn't president also have the right to veto a bill also?
Yes.
All
However,
right,
it can't. The veto can be overwritten.
all right,
So okay, but let's bring in Rakim, the 18th letter's point of view.
all right.
Yeah, guys. My personal opinion is I'm not voting either Democrat or Republican. I mean, I strictly look at myself as an independent. There's some things I'm liberal about, or some things that I'm conservative about. The way that it's starting to play out, and when you look at the history of both of the parties, it's just you know, two sides of the same coin. Heads and tails of the same coin. Neither party have never really been for the people. Usually, they play kind of like a criminal being in an interrogation room. People, good cop, bad cop, trying to get a confession out of the guy. That's how I view both parties, unfortunately. It's just unless they're talking about tangibles, it's I find it no interest for me to vote. I feel like uh, in particular, the Democratic Party uses a lot of symbolism. They speak in a lot of coded language, and they haven't really executed with actions. And God knows how long. And me, quite frankly, I lean more towards conservative, even though I am an independent because I'm an advocate for Second Amendment rights. You know, so that's one issue that I agree with the Republican Party. And at this particular point, I also lean more towards them because of this whole um, intersexuality thing, and the situation with trans formers, and you know um, the alphabet people. So like it's like people. They're one thing you got to understand about politicians. They proclaim to want to help, but they're only going to do so much in order to be able to you know make themselves look good in the public eye. So with that being said, I just don't trust any of them. And one thing I will thank, is the internet because it has exposed a lot of the dirty tricks that a lot of these politicians play. And people that I you know thought highly of, like Barack Obama, or various different politicians. I no longer feel that way because of more information has come out, and you start to see the tricks that a lot of people pay to exploit the poor, and especially with Black Americans. The Democratic Party has been on our shoulders for quite some time, and there's really nothing to show for it. So at this particular point, um, I'm very skeptical of both, and I think everybody should weigh their options and decide who you're going to vote for, based off your own economic interests. Also, the name of the game too is if you're fed up with one particular party, even though you may take the loss for one election or two election cycles, vote for the opposite party in a block to show the other party how dissatisfied you are with them.
Mhm. Yeah. When you think about both parties, first of all, you have many in the Republican Party that tries to make it harder for people to vote, because if you can restrict the vote, it makes it easier for them to win election. And then you have the Democratic Party, um, who treats who like to play these games. Like for example, when it comes to reproductive rights, okay. Now most people know I'm pro-life, but this is the thing. This is the thing that I am bewildered. The Democratic Party had 49 years to codify reproductive rights, and they had there were occasions when the Democrats had control of the White House, the House, and the Senate. The Democratic Party never bothered to codify these so called reproductive rights until this year. Okay? So if they were really all that concerned about reproductive rights and women's health or whatever, something would have been done. Another issue that people talking about is the talk regarding reparations. Now, I do believe reparations should be paid, considering all the turmoil that the African American community has endured. I mean, we could discuss this until doomsday. Unfortunately, all the Democratic Party can do is talk, talk, talk. They don't plan anything to put into effect reparations. And they had plenty of opportunities to do so. And really, the easiest time to do so would have been after the Civil War. Unfortunately, all they do is talk, 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 talk. Okay? That and 275 will get you a ride on the subway. Your thoughts, gentlemen.
As far as you say, the politicians talking, Jose.
I
Yes.
agree with that.
Yeah, only thing, that's all they do. I mean, at this particular point, the Democrats are worried that they're not going to win the midterms, and they should be. They should be. The only thing they've given people is lip service, and I think at this particular time, with the way that the economy has altered, and we're currently in a recession, borderline depression. Um, Inflation going up, gas prices going up, people getting laid off, rent going up. People are not in People are not trying to hear any more lip service. The more and more the walls close in on people, the more angry people become, and the more people lose faith in this system, in this American system. And it's always, in my personal opinion, it's always been about running game. It's always been about pulling the wool over people's eyes. It's always been a game of let's exploit the poor, but we have to put a few of the poor in position to be financially successful so we can use them as examples of if you work hard, this is where you can get to keep people in a limbo of running on that hamster wheel.
Mhm.
Like poverty don't just exist because people are not working hard. Some of us, from the East Coast to the West Coast, know people that worked hard all their lives and still don't have anything. So,
But
like I think people are fed up with this lip service because some people decide to mentally shut down, and they never want to lose hope into whatever party. That's why you have people that vote for their own economic self-interest. But as a young man, I was told to vote Democrat. I was taught that the Democrats was good, Republicans was bad. And as time went on, I woke up and I have the internet to thank for that, because um it exposed so much information that I never knew, and even the history of the Democratic Party, especially with the Dixiecrats. And I believe I might have said this on Fighter Stream, but if you do your research and you see, the switcheroo on parties, you will see that some of these staunch Republicans, their grandfathers was Dixiecrats. So that'll tell you
yeah, they
everything
were.
you need to know.
They were until Stroman Thurmond. I guess he was dissatisfied with the Democratic Party, so therefore that's why he turned Republican. And then you have the descendants of those Dixiecrats who are now Republican.
Absolutely. It's all just a big game. And one thing that the Republicans do, the Republicans exploit. a lot of the poor whites, you know, in the Ozarks and in the Appalachians. You know, they lied to a lot of these people and tell them that they're going to bring back coal factories. They're going to bring back all of these jobs that have been long gone in the United States that never seems to manifest. And you have people, you know, that are starving that's holding on to hope because that's all they got. You know,
Mhm.
some people that's all they got. They don't have anything else. So I think it's important for us to understand that neither party are for the people. You know, a lot of the times they're not going to put forth anything unless you're contributing to their campaign. And I think that's as important for any community. Work within that community, build up your wealth, vote locally. That way you can have the power to represent your group on a national scale. And you can buy these politicians because all these politicians want is money and to make sure that their name is, you know, out there and to be able to pull strings and do personal favors for their colleagues. And that's
Mhm.
about it.
or
And that's important for us to understand.
what I think that as African Americans and Latinos, what we need to practice is macronomics because I've seen Indians that do that, and I've seen Chinese people that have done that, and Bangladeshis too. I might say macro, but I think it's the term is actually called microeconomics.
Yeah,
So that
absolutely.
means so therefore we have stuff. We don't have to go in to the Chinese man to or the Asian man to buy our hair products anymore if we actually run it. Or we
Right.
could
We
buy
we have to we have to corner the market as people, and we have to do exactly what you said, Don, because a lot of us fail to understand that neither one of those groups really get involved in politics at a national level. You never hear. I mean, look, you had the Asian crime bill passed, and how often do we see Asians involved in politics? You know, never really. You know, at least I haven't. You may see a few here and there. So it goes to show you that money talks. You know,
yeah.
if people feel like that you are an asset to the system, they're going to be willing to, you know, uh, give you a couple of scissors to cut through that red tape, as I should say.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
Excuse me. I just want to acknowledge the presence of Taino Knight. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for stopping by. The topic for tonight is what the most common reasons why people don't vote.
Yeah,
Okay.
well I'm about to well, I don't know how long you're gonna have this stream on Don Jose,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna eat and I might come back. So,
Okay.
you know,
Well, what I will say is, buen provecho.
thank you, Don Jose.
Okay. Now we have a comment here, which is the politicians turn to lobbyists. That's why it's important for us to vote and urge our own noble men and women to run for office on the local level. We won't go anywhere complaining about politicians. And then he says they turn them into lobbyists because they pay good money.
I agree.
Okay.
I definitely agree, and that's what I was just saying previously before Taino Knight um joined the stream. See, what people don't understand, like I can just speak for mine, is that a lot of people are waking up to brainwashing. You know, people, a lot of this information people did not know before the internet. You know, growing up, I didn't know this. You know, you because you fall for the trope. It's just like America. You know, oh, get your slice of the American pie. Everyone come here, and then some people come and see that America is not what it appears to be, or America is not what the image that was put out there. You know, it has its pros. Don't get me wrong, America definitely has its pros, but it has unexpected cons that people were never expected, and that's the way politics is in the United States as well. It's about voting at the local level and building a rapport with the local level to be able to serve your best interests. Because if you go into a town, let's say Atlanta, Georgia, or different, areas where it's controlled at the local level, it's going to be very difficult to touch people, or to be able to, think you're going to use those people without them getting something in return. That's like me going down to South Florida. Who controls South Florida? The Cuban Americans control South Florida, from the political level to the industrial level, all the way back down to business and all aspects of that, especially in Miami. So that's important for people to understand. To my people, I understand. We it's taken us a while because we're waking up. We've been brainwashed, and a lot of the times we've been brainwashed by politicians that look like us, who serve us no interest. So the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharptons and the what's his name, the Boule Martins and all of these guys like that, these jokers, it's enough out of them because they only serving their own best interest. Got to get somebody in there that looks like us, that's for us at the local level.
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge the fact that Magic Mulata is in the chat. Good evening. Also, I want to acknowledge the fact that both Magic Mulata and the 18th Letter both have YouTube channels. So what I'm gonna ask that the audience, if they have not done so, please subscribe to both their channels and check out their content. They both have very interesting and intriguing content. And actually, what I'm doing every week, Raking, is every week I acknowledge someone in the YouTube community who, in my opinion, is making a positive influence in these YouTube streets. So tonight I mentioned you as one of those individuals who are making a positive influence with these YouTube streets.
Oh man, thank you. Shout out to my YouTube dad, Jose Negron, for that. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I mean, my little struggle streams, I appreciate you guys for stopping by and showing some support. I appreciate everyone watching, and thank you once again. I really appreciate that. I feel like Sally Fields when she won that award. You like me, you really like me.
Speaking about I also want to acknowledge that Keisha is in the building. Good evening, Keisha. Now, also Keisha also has a YouTube channel called Wine and FaceTime. And she goes on every Saturday night around 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna ask that if you're not done so, please check out her content. She's going to be off. She's not going to be on this Saturday night, but she will be on the next Saturday. So I'm going to ask that, all the oncoming folk to please check out Keisha. Please check out Magic Balanga. And please check out the 18th Letter.
Shout out to Magic Mulata. Shout out to Kashelle. Kashelle, that's my girl right there. Um, she definitely offers great content. Watch her channel. I love how transparent she is, and I love the type of content she does. And she's all about fitness. She's all about helping people get through difficult times. If you're going through difficult times and everything, and just kicking back and chopping it up on her channel. I really appreciate her channel, and everybody go subscribe.
Yeah. I just want to highlight what Tanya Wright said, which says, know your district, the 18th letter. If your neighborhood hasn't been gentrified, then you should know everyone in your neighborhood and the ins and outs. You can do it. And that's what I mean by the local level. Now, I have the dubious distinction of being represented in the House by the infamous AOC.
Yes, AOC. AOC. What can we say about AOC? What we can say about AOC is that when it comes to politics, she's BAD, and that's very important for people to understand. And people have to understand. It's just what Taino Knight was saying. Control things in the local level, and this goes for all groups. Everyone that looks like you is not for you.
Yeah.
Some people are there to benefit their best interest. Before you bake bread, you know, before you bake bread or you bake a cake, you got to get all the impurities and sift out, the flour to make sure it's perfectly even. And that's what it comes to with a lot of these jokers. You got to put them in that little sifter and get out the ones everything else does good.
Yeah. Well, right now, our current mayor is Eric Adams, and to be perfectly honest, not too many people are pleased about him. Oh, I have to acknowledge the fact that Miranda Reyes is also in the house. Good evening. And I want to let
Shout out to
everybody,
Morena.
yeah, and I want to let everybody know that she also has a YouTube channel. So, what I'm going to ask, if you have not done so, please subscribe to her channel and check out her content. I know she's been very busy, but she does have a lot of material to cover. So I'm going to ask you to please show some love to our follow Latina.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Morena channel is a very good channel, and it's a channel where it's pretty much about fun streams, or you talk about serious topics here and there, and everyone is able to offer their input, and it's just about having fun over there. So shout out to Morena Reyes, and shout out to her channel.
Yeah. Now, when she does do her stream, she does tend to do it late at night because she doesn't want to conflict with any of the other YouTube creators because it seems like more or less we have the same audience.
Absolutely, but that's one thing you got to appreciate, because when you have small audiences, your audiences, you know what to expect, and it becomes just like hangouts, where you appreciate those people. You appreciate getting to know those people, getting to know their opinions and perspectives on things, and it's just it's one thing about StreamYard and YouTube that you can say is that it has been fun to know that even though we come from different cultures, we come from different cities, um, and we move in different ways, we all got commonalities. We all got commonalities, and you know, um, we're able to relate to each other on those commonalities, and how we see that even though we're different, a lot of things are still the same as well.
Yeah. Now, let me just give you some figures regarding some of the reasons why people don't vote. And I was just sharing from an article from NPR that was written on December 15th, 2020. Okay. 29% of people say the reason why they don't vote because they're not registered to vote. Okay. That's number one. Um, 23% of the people that don't vote because they're not interested in voting. 20% is because they don't like the candidates. 16% are feeling that their vote wouldn't make a difference. And 10% being undecided on whom to vote. Your reaction regarding these figures, Dr. King?
Yes, not just voting. That sounds like the American public on a lot of things. Unfortunately, majority of the American public are not educated on the way that the system works in this country, and a lot of the times is their fair propaganda and fluff in order to try to get their votes. A lot of people, like I said before, when you live in some of these impoverished areas and the education is not the best, now that's starting to change because people are starting to wake up because of their phone, which is one of the reasons why the government are trying to make attempts to censor the internet on certain things, because now people can honestly say that their phone has taught them more, or they paid attention more, have learned more in their phones than they've had in 8 years of education in grammar school and 4 years of education in high school, and in some cases 2 years in college. So that's important for people to understand, that a lot of people are just uneducated, and they can be sitting there in their rundown living room, eating ramen noodles, and then they see "Get your booty to the polls," Joe Biden, "Get your booty to the polls," and they just say, "Oh, Joe Biden resonates with me, so I'm just going to vote for him just cause I was told to vote Democrat," and not understanding that's the worst decision that you possibly can make. And some people just don't see how it benefits their lives because they don't understand the ins and outs of politics, and they can't see themselves really advancing any further. And those are the people that politicians prey on.
I just want to highlight this comment that Keisha entered. I've skipped some years voting on purpose. I'm the 16% that felt that it wouldn't matter regardless because the government and the electoral college. See that's the problem. And there have been at least 4 or 5 different occasions in this country's history where the person who got the most votes as far as the popular vote didn't get elected because unfortunately it's everything is based on the electoral college. And I mean, I can understand it kind of in the beginning, but when you have a situation that on 5 different occasions where the person who won on the popular vote didn't get elected because of the electoral college. Now, there's always been some talk regarding trying to get rid of it. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen because it favors both parties. Your views, Joaquin.
Can you repeat that once again, Jose? I'm sorry, I was going in
I
and out.
said, I said, a lot of people have complained about the fact that at least on 5 different occasions, the person who won on the popular vote didn't get elected because of the electoral college. And there's always been a lot of talk regarding trying to get rid of it. Unfortunately, it benefits both parties to keep the electoral college in place. So, what's your views on that point?
Uh, yeah, I think it sucks for people when they realize that the person has the most popular vote, but the electoral college is what trumps the election. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. Me personally, I would prefer the popular vote because that's what the people want. But you know, at the same time, it's always some funny business that's involved. With that. So I really don't know what to say.
Well, one of the arguments that people make against basing the election on the popular vote, what happens is that the the candidates will only go to those states when there's huge populations, such as California, New York, Illinois, Texas, Florida, um, Pennsylvania, Michigan, New Jersey, and what have you. Okay. And also, another problem that people don't want to talk about is that there's in many communities they try to make it almost impossible for people to vote, whether it be having less stations for them to vote or have tougher um, guidelines. Now, we're fortunate in New York in the sense that um, we are able to, you know, we have early voting. In fact, early voting is happening now. It started Saturday and it goes on to Sunday. Um, so it gives people an opportunity to vote at a time when it's convenient. Of course, that's not always the case in other cities. In your area, how is the situation? Do they try to encourage people to vote or they try to discourage people to vote?
Well, you know that on every election they encourage them people to vote. I am being encouraged to vote for the Democratic Party. This guy named Prisker, who is the governor of Illinois, but he is currently trying to sign into laws to give more stricter gun laws than Illinois already has. And I'm like, my guy, you got people out here running around with fully automatic weapons. How am I going to defend myself with a six-shot revolver? Do you want me to come out of my garage like Yosemite Sam with two to go up against people in the streets that are criminals? They got these type of weapons. Like, are you serious? So he won't be getting my vote, but it's a few politicians that I got my eyes on. But yes, they have been encouraging people to vote. Um, yeah, they have been encouraging people to vote for the Democratic Party in my area.
Now, I have a possible solution. If in a perfect world, if I can, you know, move a magic wand and change things instead of basing everything by the electoral college, what I would do is the following. It'll be based on the popular vote, but as far as the congressional district is concerned, okay. So let's say um, I'm running as a Republican and you're running as a Democrat, okay. And let's say my district, which is the 14th congressional district in New York, okay. And let's say, for the sake of argument, 50,000 people voted. I got 20 and you got 30,000. If we did it that way, then the congressional district will go to you. Now, currently, there are 435 congressional districts. So that means if a person won the popular vote in 218 of the congressional districts, based on that criteria, that person will become president. And I think it'll be more of a reflection, it will give the citizenry more of an incentive to vote because it's going to be based on the popular vote, but divided into congressional districts. So what's your thought about it? What's your thoughts?
Of course, I think whoever wins the popular vote, that should be the end all be all. But unfortunately, we know how the system is set up with the electoral college vote. So I mean, you know, I wish things could change, but that's how it is. And it seems like whoever gets certain states, especially like if you get a Texas, a Florida, or a California, or a New York, you pretty much, you get 3 out of 4 of those, you might, you pretty much won the election. But
I mean, mhm.
that's
I
just the
mean,
way.
if you take a look at Donald Trump, well, I don't know people don't want to take a look at Donald Trump. I'm just saying, I mean, the reason how he managed to win, he got some tiny majorities in um, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, and other states. I mean, that's really the only way, I mean, realistically. And in fact, the last time a Republican won the popular vote was Bush 43 back in 2004.
Yeah.
And yeah, let me just highlight this point. I
Oh,
hate, I even hate when politicians come only around during the pre-election, like, yo, where have you been all year? And you want my vote?
yeah, I can answer that for you, Kishelle. Where I've been all year, I've been preparing for this campaign on what I'm going to say to get a good response to tell you where I've been all year. That's where I've been at all year. I'm trying to, hey, look, we got an unspoken agreement. I don't care about y'all. Just give me that vote. But unfortunately, shout out to my YouTube dad, Jose, once again. But I got to get ready to head out. I got to prepare for work.
Okay,
So,
well, thank you very much for stopping by, and I just want to acknowledge that the Intro Boricua is in the building as well. So I just want to let everybody know that he also has a YouTube channel. So I'm going to ask if you have not done so, please check his channel out and subscribe. Well, anyway, in either case, thank you very much for stopping by, Raheem.
yeah,
And
shout out to my boy
anything
Ramon.
yeah, and I think you have another stream coming up. You want to talk about it briefly before you go?
Yes. The next stream I got coming up is called Black Steel in an Hour of Chaos, where I'll be talking about, the history of the, prison system and the judicial system in the United States, and how it, has practically, monopolized Black American men since the end of, since the Emancipation Proclamation, and to be able to find a way to still profit off of an ex-slave population that continues to this day. So I'll probably be doing that stream Saturday, or it's not set in stone yet. I may make it a different subject because I don't always want to do serious streams or streams regarding racial topics, but I think that is a
Yeah.
again,
Raheem,
hope
I need you. You kind of cut me off.
appreciate it.
Continue.
Shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys have a good one and take it easy.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Okay, go ahead. Can you continue? Okay, I apologize. I was just having some minor technical difficulties. I see that her background is noisy. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link again. And again, anyone is more than welcome to join the panel. What I'm going to do in the meanwhile, excuse me, I'm just going to continue reading the article. Okay, let's see, where was I? So I just stated the reasons why people don't vote. They're not registered. They're not interested. They don't like the candidates. They feel that vote don't matter, and they're undecided. Okay. So they are disengaged, disaffected, and don't believe politics can make a difference in their lives. They're also more likely to be Latino, younger, make less money, and have lower levels of education than voters. Okay. Difficulty voting doesn't appear to be a major reason why they don't vote. 3/4 said they think it's at least somewhat easy to vote. It's more that these voters feel a sense of alienation and apathy. They are generally detached from the news and pessimistic about politics, the survey found. Politics is simply not the way to make change, they said. Two-thirds of non voters agree, for example, that voting has little to do with the way that decisions are made in this country. There are 21 points that they'll more likely say than people who voted. Okay. And we have the intro that says, I never voted on the island. I knew better out there. I gave Obama a chance. Don't really regret it since, especially the second time around. But after that, I've been voting green. Okay. So, okay. Well, these 80 million Americans are also less engaged in their communities and have less confidence in their local government. They're also less likely to volunteer or be civically engaged doing things like sending letters to the news media and elected officials or participating in marches, protests, and demonstrations. Non-voters are also more likely than voters to say that traditional parties and politicians don't care about people like me. The mainstream media is more interested in making money than telling the truth. The American economy is rigged to advantage the rich and powerful. Success in life is pretty much determined by forces outside our control, and to feel that most issues discussed in Washington don't affect them personally. Okay. They're also less likely to say that elections in this country are free and fair for all. To have a favorable opinion of the news media, to watch, read, or listen to news every day, or to discuss politics with friends or family. If family and friends vote, that makes people more likely to vote, the survey found. Non-voters also mostly shun the news of the presidential election. For example, only 38% of them follow stories about the presidential and congressional campaigns in 2020, at least fairly closely compared with 79% of people who voted. And they were less likely to have watched the debates or conventions. Less than a third watched the presidential debates compared to almost two-thirds of voters. What more? Two-thirds of non-voters said they didn't watch the presidential or vice presidential debates of either Republican or Democratic conventions. Okay. Interesting. Campaigns which have sophisticated data programs showing which are the highest propensity voters don't seem to view this group as worth much effort. Less than a quarter of non-voters said campaigns have reached out to them, offered them information, or asked them to vote. That's compared to almost half the voters. Not much. It seems we're motivated to vote either. As what they think will most encourage people to vote, the top answer was none or nothing, 35%. That was followed by cleaning up government by 27%, having more candidates to choose from 20%, being automatically registered to vote 16%, and making election day a national holiday. Actually, it is a holiday. Making election day a national holiday, incidentally, was the top answer for voters, 42% showing the disconnect between the groups. Okay, now we're going to discuss who are the non-voters. There are strong social economic correlations between voting and not voting. Non-voters tend to make less money, have lower levels of education, be less likely to own their own homes, or less likely to be married. While only 21% of the voters made $50,000 a year or less, 43% of the non-voters did. Just over a quarter of the voters who have a high school degree or less, but a majority, 50% of the non-voters did. 60% of the voters said they were married, but just 44 of the voters did, which impacts the economic power in a society where dual income households are becoming increasingly necessary in more expensive parts of the country. Now, non-voters were also more likely to be young and Latino. 35% of non-voters in this survey were between the ages of 18 and 34, compared with 24% of voters. And notably, a quarter of non-voters were Hispanic, compared with 7% of voters. Latinos tend to lean Democratic, and voter registration efforts with Latinos in most presidential years are key for Democrats. That was hampered this year by the coronavirus, and Democrat Joe Biden wound up underperforming in some heavy Latino areas such as South Texas and South Florida. Latinos are more likely than and other groups to say they're not interested in politics, and most haven't voted in recent elections. The top reasons Latino give for why they don't vote is that they don't care much about politics, but another is that they have never registered. Only 50% of Latino survey overall say they have registered to vote. That's compared to 80% of white respondents and 78% of Black Americans. But 3/4 of Latinos non-voter survey are not registered. Overall, 70% of non-voters said they were not able to vote. Okay. Now, there are many factors as far as why people don't vote. Some of it is due to the fact that they're not registered. Another part is that they don't like the candidates that are there. So that leaves us in a situation where you have to vote the lesser of two evils. And for many people, that's not a good choice. Also, many people feel that their vote does not matter. Okay. Now, I hate to keep repeating, but in the stream that I did, I believe it was 2 months ago, regarding whether or not vote does have an impact. If you're talking about, say, things like representatives of the city council or your community boards, or to a certain extent, mayor, it can have somewhat of an impact. When it comes to offices like president and the Senate, and to a certain extent the House, not as much. Okay, so it's the key is to you really try to learn as much as you can regarding the candidates, and to think which candidate is going to help you. Okay, and that could be easier said than done. Now I'm going to share another article. This is written by the ACLU. And the date of the article was August 17, 2021. And the article states the following: voting should be as easy and accessible as possible, and in many cases it is. But in recent years, more than 400 anti-voter bills have been introduced in 48 states. These bills erect unnecessary barriers for people to register to vote by mail or vote in person. The result is a severely compromised democracy that doesn't reflect the will of the people. Our democracy works best when all eligible voters can participate and have their voices heard. Suppression efforts range from seeming uninstructive, like strict voter ID laws and cuts to early voting, to mass purchase of voter rolls and systematic disenfranchisement. These measures disproportionately impact people of color, students, the elderly, and people with disabilities. And long before election cycles began, legislators redraw district lines that determine the weight of your vote. Before we list some of the most rampant methods of voter suppression across the country, the advocacy and literacy efforts aimed at protecting our fundamental right to vote. So there is voter registration restrictions. Restricting the terms and requirements of registration is one of the most common forms of voter suppression. Restrictions can include requiring documents to prove citizenship or identification, onerous obstacles for voter registration drives, or limiting the window of time in which voters can register. Politicians often use the unfounded claim of voter fraud to justify registration restrictions. In 2011, Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach championed a law requiring Kansans to show proof of citizenship documents in order to register to vote, citing false claims of non-citizen voting. Most people don't carry the required documents on hand, like a passport or a birth certificate, and as a result, the law blocked registrations on more than 30,000 Kansans. The ACLU sued and defeated the law in 2018. In 2020, the Supreme Court and a 10th Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the ruling. After a surge in registration during the 2018 midterm election, Tennessee legislators imposed substantial requirements on groups that foster political participation via voter registration efforts and created criminal and civil penalties against those who fail to comply with these onerous requirements and turn in incomplete applications. The ACLU filed a federal lawsuit challenging the law and blocked it from going into effect in 2019. Another issue is criminalization of the ballot box. Some states are discouraging voter participation by imposing arbitrary requirements and harsh penalties on voters and poll workers who violate these rules. In Georgia, lawmakers have made it a crime to provide food and water to voters standing in line at the polls. Lines that are notoriously long in Georgia, especially for communities of color. In Texas, people have been arrested for given outrageous sentences for one amount at most the innocent mistakes made during the voting process. ACLU clients Crystal Mason and Herbert Rogers are examples of this egregious treatment. Because of racism in law enforcement and the broader criminal legal system, criminalization of the ballot box disproportionately impacts people of color who are more likely to be penalized. This method of voting suppression aims to instill fear in communities of color and suppress their choices in the democratic process. Another issue is felony disenfranchisement. A felony conviction can come with drastic consequences, including the loss of your right to vote. Some states ban voting only during incarceration, while others on probation or parole. And other states and jurisdictions like Maine, Vermont, and Washington, D.C. don't disenfranchise people with felony convictions at all. The fact that these laws vary so dramatically only adds to the overall confusion that voters face, which is a form of voter suppression in itself. Due to racial bias in the criminal system, felony disenfranchisement laws disproportionately affect Black and brown people who often faced harsher sentences than white people for the same offenses. Many of these laws were rooted in the Jim Crow era, while legislators tried to block Black Americans from really one right to vote by enforcing poor taxes, literacy tests, and other barriers that were nearly impossible to meet. Excuse me. To this day, the states with the most extreme disenfranchisement laws also have long histories of suppression of the rights of Black people. Also, another issue is voter purges. Cleaning up voter rolls can be a responsible part of election administration because many people move, die, or become ineligible to vote for other reasons. But sometimes states use this process as a method of mass disenfranchisement. This disenfranchisement, purging eligible voters from the polls for illegitimate reasons or based on inaccurate data and often without adequate notice to the voters. A single purge can stop up to hundreds or thousands of people from voting. Often, voters only learn that they've been erroneously purged when they show up at the polls on election day and it's too late to correct the error. Election administrators properly keep voter rolls up to date by filtering out voters who have changed their addresses, died, or otherwise become ineligible to vote. But states would often conduct such purges using inaccurate data, flawed processes, and targeting certain voters with those with felony convictions, without enforcing federally mandated safeguards to prevent purging voters who don't even fall under the targeted groups. The ACLU has taken action against unlawful voter purges and laws that enable them. In 2019, they stopped Texas' flawed discriminatory voter purge list that targeted naturalized citizens. This year, they blocked an Indiana law that would allow country elections officials to kick voters off immediately without their explicit consent or knowledge, or an opportunity to correct the record. So there's a lot of issues why people choose not to vote, and it could be they have to go through hoops in order to exercise their franchise. Another issue is redistricting and gerrymandering. Every 10 years, states redraw district lines based on population data gathered in the census. Legislators use these district lines to allocate representation in Congress and state legislators. When redistricting is conducted properly, district lines are redrawn to reflect population changes and racial diversity. But too often, states use redistricting as a political tool to manipulate the outcome of election. That's called gerrymandering, a widespread undemocratic practice that's stifling the voices of millions of voters. The Census Bureau released data from the 2020 census in August 2021, triggering this once-in-a-decade line drawing process in most states. These new district lines will determine our political voice for the next decade. And another issue is the 2020 census. Okay, just give me a moment. In 2018, the Trump administration announced plans to add a citizen question to the 2020 census with the goal of suppressing participation of immigrant communities, stunting their growth in political influence. The question would have been resulted in an accurate count that goes against the census' very purpose to count everybody in this country. Accurate population data is essential in proportions in representation and public funds. The ACLU sued the administration and successfully blocked the citizenship question before the census was conducted. Okay, now I see here that there are 5 people watching the stream. So I just want to say thank you very much. It may not be all that exciting, but this is information that we do need to know. Another issue which does prevent voters from exercising their franchise is voter ID laws. 36 states have identification requirements at the polls. 7 states have strict photo ID laws, under which voters must present one of a limited set of forms of government-issued photo ID in order to cast a regular ballot. No exceptions. These strict ID laws are part of an ongoing strategy to suppress the vote. Over 21 million U.S. citizens do not have qualifying government-issued photo identification, and these individuals are disproportionately voters of color. That's because ID cards aren't always accessible to everyone. The ID itself can be very costly, and even when IDs are free, applicants must incur expenses to obtain them, the underlying documents that are needed to get an ID. This can be a significant burden on people in lower income communities. Further, the travel required to obtain an ID is an obstacle for people with disabilities, the elderly, and people living in rural areas. Now we're going to talk about who's affected by voter suppression. Okay. Um, the link is in the chat if anyone wishes to join. You can also enter comments. Just try to keep it respectable, please. Who is affected by voter suppression? The short answer is all of us. Our democracy is debased when the vote is not accessible for all. But the fact that some groups are disproportionately affected by voter suppression tactics, including people of color, young people, the elderly, and people of disabilities. The proof is in the numbers. Across the country, 1 in 16 Black Americans cannot vote due to disenfranchised laws. Counties with larger minority population have fewer polling sites and poll workers per vote. In 2018, I hate this term, but I'm going to read it anyway. Latinx and Black Americans were twice as likely as whites to be unable to get off work while polls were open. 25% of voting age Black Americans do not have a government issued ID. Geographic isolation is a major barrier to Native American voters due to the inaccessibility of nearby polling stations in many reservations. In South Dakota, 32% of the Native voters cite travel distance as a factor in deciding whether to vote. More than 1/6 of the 18% of voters with disability reported difficulties in voting in person in 2020. Nearly 2/3 of polling places had at least one impediment for people of disabilities. So now we're going to talk about how to protect your vote. The right to vote is the most fundamental constitutional right for good reason. Democracy cannot exist without the electoral participation of citizens. We vote because we, the people, are supposed to shape our government, not the other way around. President Biden and states can enact measures to encourage whether it's suppress voting. Automatic online and same-day voter registration encourage participation and reduce chances of error. Early voting helps people with travel or accessibility concerns to participate, and states must enforce the protections of the Voting Rights Act. At an individual level, the best way to fight voter suppression is to know your rights and vote. Now I'm just going to read the part about knowing your rights. Before you get out to the polling booth, read and share. Okay, our guide. Okay, on what to do in face registration issues, need disability, or language accommodations, or come across someone who's interfering with the right to vote. Share your guide on Facebook. Okay. Now there is a toll-free number that you can call. Um, Learn about how to exercise your voting rights, resist voter intimidation efforts, and access disability-related accommodations and language support assistance. For help at the polls, call the Nonpartisan Election Protection Hotline at 1-866 vote. That's 1-866 capital letter O as in Oscar, U as in universe, R as in right, V as in Victor, O as in owl, T as in Thomas, and E as in Edward. And what I just read is that there may be people who want to vote, but there are many obstacles that interfere. Okay. Now I'm happy to say that here in New York, um, it's very easy to vote. Okay. And you can vote either in person or you can vote by absentee ballot. Now, what's different is that if you requested an absentee ballot, you have to vote using the absentee ballot. Or what you can do is you can drop off your ballot at your polling station. Okay. Now, like I said before, there are many reasons why people don't vote. A lot of it has to do with that they don't think that their vote matters. Okay. Now there is a site. Okay. If you go into Google and you enter "find my polling site," what that's going to do is going to ask you to enter your address, and then based on your address, it's going to inform you where to go to vote. Also, you may be able to download an example of a ballot to give you, so at least to give you an idea. First of all, who are the candidates? Number one, and also whenever there is a vote, sometimes there are propositions to either vote yay or nay on. So I would suggest, if you have not done so, and if you do plan to vote, make sure that, make sure that you try to get as knowledgeable as you can regarding the candidates that are running. Now, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, sometimes you got to pick two crappy candidates. Okay, I mean that's what happened really in 2016 and 2020. Okay, when you take a look, you have the choice between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Okay, and in 2020, you had the choice to select either Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Or as I like to use this analogy when it comes to having to vote between two candidates that you don't find appealing, is that one of them is a dumb cart and the other one is a horse that's getting ready to die. Now let me explain to you why I use that analogy. Because when it comes, for those of you who don't know what a dung cart is, it's a cart where you take, how can I say this and keep it within the good? Okay, you know how animals, when they take a dump, and they leave their waste all over the place. That's what a dung cart is. A dung cart, what it does is it takes all the waste that comes out of animals and places somewhere, and it smells, and I mean really smells bad. Okay, and then the horse analogy is basically a horse that's in his last legs and is getting ready to die. So that's my analogy regarding two candidates which are not very appealing. Okay. Now again, I want to make this perfectly clear. I'm not trying to shame anyone who does not vote. Okay. I'm not trying to shame anyone that does vote. The whole purpose of this stream is to discuss the reasons why people choose not to vote. And again, as I stated before, there are some compelling reasons why people don't vote. Okay, part of it has to do with some of these efforts to restrict the citizenry from voting, whether it be reducing the number of poll sites, whether it be reducing the hours. Okay, I am at the belief. I firmly believe that voting should be done on the weekend. Okay. First of all, because that's when most of the people are able to vote. So, and I see here there's still 3 people looking at the stream, so I just want to say thank you very much. Let's see, just give me a moment. I'll just see if I can find one more. Okay, I'm going to share one more article, and then if no one else joins the stream, I'm going to start to wrap this up. Let's see, and actually, this is a recent article that was posted October 6th of this year. And it has to do with the U.S. Senate race in the state of Indiana. Okay. Election experts still expect voter turnout to be about 20% lower than during the presidential election years. In Indiana, voter turnout is much lower than in other parts of the country. In a state without competitive elections, people get bored in a lot of ways. Aaron Dussel a political science professor at IUPUI said. Again, this is at the top of the ballot. There are competitive elections down the ballot, but those aren't what people focus on. Experts say that during the presidential election years, voter turnout is about 60%. During non-presidential election year, turnout is around 40%. I hope if I mispronounce this person's name, please forgive me. Rajiv Vignakova is the president of the Institute for Citizens and Scholars, which focuses on civil learning and education. He says that many Americans are disillusioned with the politics in general. Interesting. We know that most people don't understand how our government functions. Vinakota said, our voting levels are usually around 50% or lower. There is a lot of loss of trust and loss of hope in democracy right now. While some people feel that the way we talk to say they believe local elections are more important than ever. It's very important in general. Local elections are just as not more important than countrywide elections. Lindsay Wood of a Marion County resident said. I think it's just more urgent that every time we do it, I voted in every election. I've been eligible since I was 18 and it hasn't gone the same way politically. Rob Funkhauser, a Marion County resident, said. There's also a lot of big changes happening, and I'm not really quite sure on how to feel about those. Local elections being more important than ever is something experts agree with, especially as more down ballot elections like those for the school boards or city council are becoming more competitive. In a situation where you have an increase in not only different kinds of people running in those races, but you have all kinds of money put into those races. That's what I'm saying. In down ballot races like that, it doesn't take much money to relatively to have an effect. Getting accurate information about elections, especially for those who are further down the ballot, can be challenging, which is why experts say you have to be dedicated to performing your civic duty. As of last Friday, Marion County had 8,364 new registrations and 19,746 updated registrations. The Marion County Board of Voter Registration says they don't track the age, gender, or race of those registering. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to park it here. So, what is the general take? Is that whenever there is a non-presidential election, particularly in an election where we don't have a great deal of knowledge regarding the candidates, or the candidates that are there, it's not to our liking. What's going to happen is the voter turnout is going to be low. So as I stated, there are many reasons why people don't vote. I want to make this perfectly clear. Again, the whole purpose is not to shame those to vote. It's also not to shame those who don't vote. It is basically to have a serious discussion regarding why people choose not to vote. And sometimes it could be because of forces that are beyond our control. Mainly, restricting the number of polling stations, also restricting the hours where a person can vote, also trying to do away with mail-in ballots, also the issue regarding requiring ID or other documentation to prove citizenship. I mean, it's sad, but it's very important to be vigilant when it comes to things like this. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, I see no one else is entering any comments in the chat. I also see no one else joining the panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop to wrap this up. Okay. Now, I do want to let people know that I will be doing another live stream tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to have another round of open discussion. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar, what is open discussion? Basically, it's just that we discuss different topics. What I will do is I will share my point of view regarding topics which I perceive to be very important, and then share with the audience. Also, if there's anything that the panel wishes to discuss, they're more free to do so. All I ask is please be respectful regarding the rules and guidelines regarding YouTube. I mean, that's excuse me. When I mean, we will discuss anything and everything, just as long as it does not denigrate anyone, disrespect anyone, and the three rules that are established are complied with. And actually, Saturday, since Keisha is not going to do a stream, I'm going to be doing a stream on Saturday night regarding the high cost of medical coverage. Well, in any case, I do appreciate the presence of all those who entered the chat, which is Taino Knight, Magic, Keisha Morena, and the intruder Bericua. So I just want to say thank you very much, and I do appreciate the fact that Raquel and Donamando share their point of view on the panel. So, and and I do appreciate all those who are going to watch this stream in the playback. And again, let me make this perfectly clear. Everyone is welcome to enter a comment after the stream is over. I do ask, please be respectful towards me or towards anyone that appeared on the panel. Okay? Because if you're not going to be respectful, the comment will be deleted. It is that simple. Well, in any case, it's been a pleasure discussing with you, all of you, regarding these issues. Even if the activity, the audience was a little light. I mean, you can't always have a huge audience. So that being said, I'm going to close the same way that I always close, which is let's be good to one another and each other. Okay. So that being said, I just want to thank everyone for stopping by, and please don't forget to hit the like button as you enter your comments after the stream. So that being said, this has been another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron, and I'll see you all hopefully tomorrow night. Take care and peace.
Be strong.